Perfect. Hello and welcome to the Nolan Business Solutions webinar on our advanced bank reconciliation solution for Dynamics GP. We appreciate everybody taking the time to join us here today. First off, I just want to do a quick introduction to the Nolan team that's on the call here today. Myself, I'm Derek Beaupre. I'm the Channel Development Manager for Nolan. And also on the line with us, we have Carol Darcy, who's one of our Senior Managers and Solution Specialists, who will be leading the actual demonstration itself. And before we get going, I thought I'd take a quick minute just to introduce you to Nolan and give you a little bit of background on us as a company. We are located throughout the world. Our head office is located in the United Kingdom, where our development team is located. As well, we have offices in the United States, Colorado being our main physical office. And then we do have team members remotely in Canada and Australia. Both Carol and myself are located in Canada. And really, as a company, we specialize in building add-ons for Dynamics GP. Today, we're really going to focus in on our advanced bank reconciliation solution. And yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to bring this up for you.
Hey, no worries. So in addition to our advanced bank reconciliation, we also do have an electronic payment solution, as well as our intercompany series of products, which range from our intercompany postings to intercompany AR for cash receipts, as well as an intercompany POP-to-SOP solution. But today we're really going to focus in on advanced bank reconciliation. If you do have any other questions on our other solutions, feel free to reach out to either Turkey or ourselves.
So with that, we're passing it on to myself, I guess. Carol?
Yeah,
yes?
Absolutely. Carol, if you want to take over from here.
Perfect. So hi, everyone. As mentioned before, I'm Carol Darcy, a Senior Manager here at Nolan. So I'll be walking you through our solution and doing a little bit of a demonstration of advanced bank reconciliation. So what do we have to offer, and what is a little bit different than what you might be currently doing if you're using the native functionality of bank reconciliation inside of GP? What we try to eliminate is the manual and redundant process associated with sort of the three-way reconciliation that you're potentially experiencing inside of GP right now, where you always have that need to make sure that your checkbook is in balance to your GL before you can even attempt to reconcile that to your bank statement. With our product, we've switched the thinking a little bit, and as far as we're concerned, if an entry is made to your cash account, it should be reconciled. So it doesn't really matter where it originates from. It doesn't have to be from a checkbook entry. So where it's very helpful is if you're an organization that perhaps have operational systems external to GP, where you require to integrate or enter financial information from those systems. Now you have the ability to integrate that data directly at the GL level, and you can rest assured that with our tool, you have the ability to reconcile that as well. We also simplified the cash receipt process, as much as there is a need to go through a deposit process for cash receipts inside of Dynamics GP. Again, because we don't require that deposit process for matching purpose before you have the ability to reconcile. As soon as a cash receipt hits the GL, you have the ability to reconcile it with our tool, and we'll talk about features like auto grouping and things like that to still facilitate an automated deposit process for those cash receipts. I'm going to take an opportunity at the end to talk a little bit about enhanced feature in the area of bank statement import. Not only will you have the ability to manually import your statements with our tool, but we have also a new offering allowing us to do a direct feed of your bank data from your bank through our Nolan Cloud Services platform. So a little bit more on that in a bit. Once we have our data inside of Dynamics GP, our flexible tool, flexible auto matching rules or automated deposit groups, amount tolerance, and auto post will really help you streamline the reconciliation process and eliminate the need to do a lot of manual matching and manual adjustment of your GL. The idea is for accurate matching result, as I just mentioned. So if we can automate as much as we can of that process, you really focus your energy and your efforts on those variances instead of doing the tedious work that should automatically be done for you. Now the demo and most of the discussion is really focused on bank reconciliation of bank accounts, but our tool is also very suitable to support credit card reconciliation. So if you really think of our tool as a reconciliation tool, if you have a need to reconcile a GL account to an external statement of some sort, our tool can facilitate that. We've even had clients very creative and do purchase account reconciliation with some of their key vendors. So those are all other ideas that I can throw out there. So again, the idea is to reconcile a GL account to an external statement of some sort. So from a process standpoint, and what the demo that we're going to walk through, this is the window, the main reconcile window inside of GP of Nolan Advanced Bank Reconciliation. On the left-hand side is where we're going to gather our GL data for the cash account that we want to reconcile. Terminology we use here is we extract on the reconcile window the GL data that we want to reconcile for the period of time that we want to reconcile. So that's the other thing, is we're not so focused on reconciling just based on fiscal period, but if you have a need to reconcile your cash account on a daily basis, every other day, once a week, whatever flexibility you need, because we really work on the concept of a date range to reconcile, you can reconcile anytime you want. At the time of extracting the data, if there is commonality amongst, let's say, cash receipts, so if cash receipts are perhaps grouped by batch ID or have any other common denominator that we can locate in a memo field or a document number field, this is where we can automate the deposit process so that we can take individual transaction on the GP side, group them together to match to a consolidated amount on the bank side. So there's a couple examples on the screen, but I'll show you a couple examples in the demo as well. Now on the right-hand side of the screen, we've got our bank transaction that can be imported through a CSV typically or a BAI file. We've also accommodated text delimited file when needed, but those types of file formats are kind of rare now. But we have a lot of flexibility with our import. And as I mentioned before, we're going to spend a little bit more time on that in a moment. But the idea is we need to bring in that bank data inside of GP. We can do that manually or automated, and as part of that import we can specify some posting rules that will help facilitate auto posting of recurring type transactions. So if we want to look at transactions like bank fees, sweep account transfers, we can set up rules, posting rules that will automatically take care of that posting for us, and we'll also demonstrate an example during our demonstration here today. Once we have our two data set, the GL side and the bank, we're going to go through a set of flexible auto matching rules that will see us match transaction lines based on one or multiple matching criteria. So by default, we can always match by amount, do a simple match by amount, but then we can layer on top of that, making sure that we match based on a transaction date, document number, maybe even a reference or a memo, and then we can start really creating multiple rules based on source documents inside of GP as well. Final point there is matching tolerance. So if you want to allow for a certain amount or a certain percentage tolerance when going through the matching process, then those differences, so if you got a small d example I could state here, is if you have let's say you have two checks, the check is cleared the bank but a slightly different amount, then basically as long as it's within the tolerance level that you've specified, ABR will automatically take care of all of these adjustments, small adjustments or immaterial adjustments I like to call them, and automatically post them based on your definition of where those should go. So we're just going to do a quick demonstration here inside of Dynamics GP. So I'm going to switch out of here. Now you should be able to see my Microsoft Dynamics GP environment. We're going to go to our financial series. where our advanced bank reconciliation module is installed. So once installing our bundle, we're an actual Dynamics GP application that gets installed into your environment. So when you launch GP in your financial series, you're going to have an additional folder throughout your submenus related to advanced bank reconciliation. Right now I'm on inquiry, so I'm actually going to go to my transaction submenu under advanced bank rec. This is where you spend most of your time on a daily basis, and then more so on this reconcile bank transaction window, which is the one we were just looking at. So today we're working with a simple account that I call demo account. I actually want to make sure I've got the right dates here, so let's start by doing that. So we're working on a reconciliation, the reconciliation of a bank statement as of June 30th. Now, as of that date, I already have my GL data extracted here, and it actually includes some of the outstanding checks that we had from previous months. So you'll see once you complete a reconciliation, if you do have outstanding items, they just remain on the screen for the next month to be taken into consideration. So that's why we've got some older transactions that are still sitting here as they have not cleared the bank yet. And then we've already extracted all of our June data. Now, if I need to do a refresh, because if I'm reconciling regularly or on a daily basis, I can very easily just do a one synchronization to the GL by clicking on the extract button so that I make sure I have all the most recent GL information available for my reconciliation process. So that's the GL side. On the right-hand side, we want to bring in our bank data. Just as easy to click on the import button. Select the import definition we want to work with, because oftentimes there will be a different import definition, especially if you're working with multiple banks. Each bank will tend to have kind of their own format a little bit, or you need to have some very specific import definition for each bank. So that's the flexibility of our tool, is to have multiple import definition. And I'm actually going to drill back into that import definition to give you a sense of the flexibility you can have there. So various file formats can be leveraged, comma separated, tab separated, fixed format. Then you can essentially, with those types of files, create your own mapping. So there's no programming required. It's very simple. Anybody, even in the accounting team, will be able to take their file that they need to import and do a simple mapping of where each piece of information is found. So which column is the transaction date into column 3, amount is in column 5, type 6, etc., etc. So there's even kind of a sample showing up on the screen to facilitate that. So once we have that import definition, so that's if it's a user, what we call a user-defined format, because if it's a CSV or a text delimited, it will definitely vary from bank to bank. Now, sometimes if the bank is able to give you a BAI format, that's a little bit more standard. So we are able to read those BAI file and automatically populate the fields properly. Same with some of the European type format that you're seeing as an example here. But let's just go ahead. We already have our import definition for a CSV file where I have all my bank data. I'm going to go ahead and import that. Once the import is complete and we redisplay, we can see all that banking information. From a usability standpoint, you got your top section with summary information about your bank. You have the ability to sort your data based on any fields that you're looking at. So we can sort by amount, transaction date, document number, whatever is suitable. You could do that on both sides. We have really nice searching and filtering capabilities. So if you need to search for a specific, let's say, amount, 563, on one or both sides, you have the ability to do that very easily. Well, I guess that amount is an outstanding check. I didn't pick a right example here. But so that's how you would have the ability to search for individual items on each or both sides at the same time. And the filtering capabilities are pretty powerful as well, because now you can create subset of your data to work with. That's most important when you have a large number of transactions. You might want to create these subsets of transaction based on date, document number, and reference. That makes it a little bit easier to work with and do a verification of the auto matching process even, or do some additional manual matching on your own. So you can essentially create any kind of grouping you want. So now that we have, now on like any GP screen, we kind of display 2 lines of information. Depending on how you prefer to work, you could just kind of scroll up and down with a 1-liner or a 2-liner, 2 lines of information. What we do though, sometimes depending on your need, maybe you want to see in that 1 line the reference field versus the doc number. So again, giving you a little bit of flexibility, making the tool that much more user-friendly depending on your need. So typical data here, I've got some checks, I've got some EFT payments from customers. Here's a perfect example of a grouping for those cash receipts. So that's the example that we can discuss here. I have multiple cash receipts recorded in GP that were all entered in a single batch because they were all deposited, the checks were deposited together on the bank side. So by carefully recording these cash receipts in the same batch, I'm able to provide a rule to ABR that says if the cash receipts were all part of the same batch ID, you need to group them together, which will then facilitate an auto match to the consolidated deposit on the bank side, is what we're going to witness here. Along those lines, another perfect example would be my payroll here. Hold on. There you go. So here's another example. I mentioned earlier integration of external systems. So here's a perfect example where I have an external payroll system with payroll data that I'm integrating as a journal entry in GP every month, or every pay period, I should say. So the nice thing about that is I want to record at the GL level, I want to spread that payroll through all the appropriate account, salary, benefits, and maybe, even per employee amount. So all of that detail is lovely in the GL, but for reconciliation purposes, it's likely one big payroll withdrawal on the bank side. So again, if we make sure that that integration is done in such a way that there is a common denominator throughout the individual entries, we can consolidate that amount automatically and then facilitate an auto match to the actual payroll withdrawal on the bank side. So that's auto grouping. So let's just go ahead and do the first step. So I've talked a lot about just kind of the user friendliness of everything, but let's just get on with the process. So we've got my GL, my bank. We're just going to go ahead and ask ABR to propose which items should be matched together based on my set of matching rules. What we're going to see, I'm going to change my display here. Instead of seeing all the data, I just want to talk about matched. So if we're looking at our match set here, I'm actually going to sort by match ID, and then I'll explain what that is in a moment. So we can see that we've got some individual matches done. We also have some of those grouping match that occurred for those receipt deposits and the payroll entry. Now when I'm clicking on this little checkbox here, I'm just doing this for your visual reference. I'm not rematching items or anything like that. These items are already matched, and I know that because they have been assigned a unique sequential match ID. And that's what we do for audit trail purposes. So now 6 months down the road, I want to find out this EFT payment or receipt, I guess in this case, this EFT receipt, when did it exactly clear the bank? Now with this match ID and looking at the bank data, I can more easily identify when that EFT receipt was actually received in the bank. And I'll show you a perfect example through a check inquiry screen that we have as well, making it a lot easier for you with our tool to determine if a check has cleared the bank or not. So we'll talk about that in a second. So I can review all the matches, make sure I'm happy. Like I said, I've got some individual matches. I've got some grouping that occurred and facilitated the auto match of consolidated amounts. And we're happy with that list. So what do we do with the remaining transactions? So if we look at on the GL side, we've got some remaining checks So for the most part, I'm not worried about those. They're most likely outstanding checks that have not cleared the bank. But we need to clear on the bank side here. So I noticed right away that I've got some recurring type transactions. I've got a check here that didn't match because we can see there's a different amount. So if we select the both item, that's the other thing, is there's always nice little control totals at the bottom that help you visualize what's going on. So you got some total, like how many items have been matched, not matched, and then specifically the two selected items here, we can see we got a difference of 36 cents. No big deal. It's very easy. If I had a tolerance level set to something like $1, then I could set up a rule that would say any two item that other than the amount have matching criteria up to $1, I want you to just auto post that penny difference to an account that I would specify. So we have a global setting allowing you to auto post these very small entries. In this case, I wasn't really set up for that, so I'm just going to go ahead. So right with the create, I have a create GL transaction button on the reconcile window, so I don't need to step out of this process. I could just come on here, say this is a penny adjustment, whoops. And my cash account is automatically picked up here with whether we need a debit or a credit, and then I can just simply specify the other side of the entry. We'll just pick a dummy account here. Let's not pay attention to that. It will automatically pick the transaction date based on the selected items as well. So if I go ahead and post, it will update my GL and update my reconcile window as well. So we can see the posting as entered, and then we can see that the transaction was re-imported back onto my reconcile screen, selected with the initial two transactions. So now we've got a nice match combo, difference of 0, so I can proceed and confirm the match. So that item is taken care of. Now let's go back to the concept of auto posting, because I kind of just did a quick fix here for an item that I would have expected to match but didn't. What about the rest here? I've got some individual transactions that are new to me. So bank fees, though, are recurring type transactions. So they're going to show up on my bank statement over and over. So would be things like sweep transfer between sweep accounts. So all of these transactions can be auto-posted because they show up the same way every time. I can create a rule at the bank account level that will indicate what needs to happen with these recurring transactions. So we can see that using a combination of the transaction type in the file. So this is an example of a BAI code, so it's more of a BAI type idea. And the description bank fees, every time we see this combination, we want to post to our bank fees posting account. So I can create a nice little posting table here for any recurring type transaction, so that at the time of reconciling, once I have dealt with my auto match and possibly some differences here, then I can kind of the remaining transactions, select all and initiate an auto post process. By clicking on this little window and this little icon here, ABR is going to go through the remaining bank transaction. Anything that matches the criteria of that auto post table will automatically get posted as defined. So we're going to go ahead and process selected record. So out of that procedure, my bank fees should get posted. So let's take a look at that. So here's a confirmation, GL created, journal entry processed. And on our display, if I switch back to matched items now, and we're going to look at the most recent match. We can see our bank fees have automatically been created in the GL and auto match. So we complete the full cycle here as well of not only updating your GL, but updating your reconcile window. So what do we do with that remaining transfer? So this is where, again, coming back to an earlier comment in the presentation, between auto matching and auto post, you should have a remaining set of transaction that is really where you want to focus your time on. So those are the variances, those are the things that were not found in the GL, and that's really where you want to focus your energy. Everything else should just happen automatically. Now this transfer is one example of that. You investigate, you find out you just received a little bit of income for whatever reason. Simple enough. I want to create an adjustment in the GL, and I'm going to go do that on the fly with our create journal entry screen. I'm just going to call it income. Again, debit to cash, and then I can just specify the other side of the entry. So if we go somewhere in our 5,000 account, I have another revenue. I guess it doesn't really matter where I go here. Oops. There, let's do other revenue. And post, and same idea as earlier, we're going to update your GL and also update your reconciliation window. Voila. And now here's our imported transaction, already selected and matched to, already selected to the bank line, and I can just confirm the match. At this point, everything on my bank side has been handled. We do, once again, have a number of checks that are outstanding. That's normal. And that actually explains, fully explains the difference between my book balance in GP and my statement ending balance being fully explained with the list of outstanding items leaves me with an unreconciled difference of 0. We have an additional little visual here if you'd like to see the plus or minuses of each bucket. And basically now in a reconciled position, I can hit the reconcile button, which will take the list of matched items and kind of move them to an historical state. So the next time I come back on the reconcile window, I start at that moment in time with only the remaining outstanding items, and I can carry on with the next day or the next month reconciliation. So let's go ahead and do that. So with reconciliation complete here, a couple of reports will come out. There's a reconcile error report, so if there was anything that, I don't know, went wrong with the reconciliation, then that would at least give you a warning. In our case, there's nothing, so it's blank. That's what you want. Here's the first report. It's going to be our reconciled transaction report, so that basically lists all the transactions that have been reconciled, and more people, what most people are most interested in is the closing balance report here, going over the bank closing balance plus or minus any outstanding items. So if you are a company that see yourself on a daily or monthly basis having outstanding items on the bank side as well, this is something that our tool can handle. That is typical of a credit card reconciliation as an example. So sometimes you'll do a credit card reconciliation daily. That doesn't mean you might have some item on your credit card statement that have not been accounted for in the GL yet, but you know it's coming. It's just due to a system integration or whatnot. So you want to have those outstanding items on the bank side. So we can facilitate that kind of idea. But in our case, more typical to a bank rec, obviously the bank closing, there's no outstanding items because I've accounted for everything in the GL. We have our GL balance, plus or minus the outstanding, gives you our adjusted balance and everything balanced out to 0. Bit of a monthly summary if you're interested. And then the subsequent pages of the report will give you the detail behind the outstanding items on both the bank and the GL side, if any. Those reports can be reprinted at any point in time. So in the reports section, we also have an advanced bank rec folder where you're going to have numerous reports you can work with, from everything from reconcile and unreconciled reports to your setup reports. And obviously the one that is reprinted sometimes over and over is that closing balance report that we were just looking at. So you don't necessarily have a need to print your reports to PDF and make sure you archive them somewhere. You can always go back in GP and reprint your closing balance report for your bank accounts at any point in time. We also have nice little inquiries. So bank statement inquiry, if you want to do a search through your bank data, because we capture and keep your bank data inside of GP. You can do some inquiry on that. You can do some inquiry on your reconciliation, your individual reconciliations as well. And the check inquiry is what I like to show here. So you got a vendor on the phone that says, hey, haven't received my check, what's going on? Very easy for sorry, people in accounting. Come in here, look up a check number, and have a sense of what might have happened with that check after being issued. So you can kind of look it up and say, well, actually, Burnett Travel Associates, I can see here from my screen that this check did clear the bank, and we can drill all the way back to the actual statement and confirm to that vendor right on the spot whether their check is cleared or not. All right. So that is kind of the relatively quick overview, or actually fairly detailed now that I think of it. But I do want to take maybe a couple minutes to talk a little bit about bank data upload. So we talked about the ability that kind of having two options to bring in that bank data on the right-hand side. So there's always the ability to do a manual import using those import format definitions that I was showing you, giving you flexibility to import consolidated files for multiple bank accounts as one file, and it will automatically allocate the banking activity to the right account based on the account number. We have some bank account filtering capabilities, so maybe you do have a consolidated file but you don't want to reconcile all the accounts in it, so we can filter bank accounts in or out of that file. Accept multiple formats. We can do multi-company import as well across multiple GP databases. So a lot of flexibility when it comes to do an electronic import of your data. If you really want to take it a step further, we can also automate the import of your bank data with a scheduled bank integration through our Nolan Cloud Services platform. What that looks like, Nolan Cloud Services is a it's a platform built on Microsoft Azure, and we have multiple applications available through that tool. But in the context of Dynamics GP, it's our integration platform to securely call your bank server, where through an automated reporting service, a bank file would be made available for us to pick up. All of that is done securely through an SFTP connection. All the available bank fields in that report are uploaded to our Nolan Cloud Services environment, where that data is kept for a period of 6 months and can then be integrated through an authentication-based process as well, right into Dynamics GP. All of that is done through a scheduled time frame, on a scheduled basis, I should say. Typically that would be daily that the file will produce. That BAI file is what we commonly see. We can pull that BAI file daily, so when you come in the morning, inside of GP on your reconcile window, your bank data is automatically populated for you. So all of that happens automatically in the back end and securely. That is essentially our offering, our solution. So advanced bank reconciliation with a bank integration option. If you want more information, you want to discuss this in the context of your specific need or requirements, you can feel free to reach out to your partner, obviously. Probably should be your first point of contact. But if you want to kind of peruse through our website or contact Derek, who's also on the screen on the presentation here with me, these are the numbers and email that you could reach out to us for more information as well. I think if we have the opportunity, we can open it up for question. We forgot to mention at the beginning, if you have any questions, typically with the GoToWebinar, in my experience, there's a chat box where you could put in your questions. So we can open it up for that. Derek, if you want to help me facilitate that.
Absolutely. Not seeing anything just yet, but we can give it a minute.
Yeah. I went into a lot of detail. I'm trying to think of, is there anything that I can talk about in the meantime?
I think we covered stuff pretty good. Again, just mention too that it does work with the credit cards or payment gateways.
Yeah.
Important piece as well.
Yeah, and actually that's a good point. So when I mention credit card reconciliation, there's two sides to that, right? A credit card gateway on the cash receipt side of things, like you're mentioning, But there's also the credit card expenses or corporate credit card reconciliation for the expense side of things. So that's those are two perfect examples of other scenarios you can use our tool for.
So, well, I'm not seeing anything in the chat though, Carol. So.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll let, like I said, just we'll let everyone digest what was reviewed today. If you want a more specific demo, yeah, feel free to reach out to your partner representative or one of us, and we'll be happy to discuss that further. So thanks for the opportunity today at Turnkey, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Absolutely.